and welcome to the Pantheon. My name's Hido, and today we're having a look at a woman on a boat. It's Inga Rune-Eye. 4 mana for a 3/3 human wizard. Legendary creature. Boat. When it enters the battlefield, scry 3. Everyone likes nice scry, don't they? When it dies, draw 3 cards if 3 or more creatures died this turn. Now that bit is really quite interesting, and I like this build around. It's an interesting card, especially as it's an uncommon. Really quite a cool card, and we've got a couple of good cards coming up for you. If you like what I do with these videos, please do consider subscribing. I'm going to make one of these for every single legendary creature ever printed, and there's a lot of them, so I'm going to make these for quite a while. Without further ado, let's have a look at the top 5. And in number 5, we've got Thassa, Deep Dwelling. 4 mana for a 6/5 indestructible legendary enchantment creature god. I can't do that. I can only get 3 fingers up. Anyway, as long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, Thassa isn't a creature. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. Then you can pay 4 and tap another target creature. The main thing we're interested in is the blinking. So our commander, when it enters, scries 3. Pretty cool. But we really want to build the deck around sort of flickering things and stuff like that. So that is a great card. And then obviously Deadeye Navigator is an incredible card for this. 6 mana for a 5/5 with Soulbound. So when it comes in, you pair it with another creature, and both of them have this upcoming ability. You can pay 2, exile this creature, then return it to the battlefield under your control. So you get to flicker it out. So you can pay 2, our commander comes back in, scry 3, over and over again. But another cool creature you could pair it with is Rishadan Cutpurse. 3 mana for a pirate. When it comes into play, each opponent sacrifices a permanent unless he or she pays 1 generic. And it's a 1/1, 3 mana 1/1. And the artwork just looks lovely, doesn't it? By Christopher Mueller. I think that's how you say his name. But this is really cool because it pairs with our commander's other ability. So yes, our opponents could pick a land, but more than likely they're going to want to get rid of disposable creatures. A Solemn Simulacrum, maybe. So when this comes in, they sacrifice maybe 3 creatures. We can then flicker our commander. It comes in or dies. No, we have to sacrifice it to make it die. And then we get 3 cards out of the deal, which is pretty good. And then Rishadan Brigand, 5 mana for a 3/2 flyer. When it comes into play, each opponent sacrifices an opponent unless he or she pays 3. So the likelihood is that our opponents just won't have that 3 mana, and then they're just going to be sacrificing opponents left, right, or centre. This is a great card to flicker. We can just do it over and over again, and our opponents won't have a board state anymore. Then it may only block only creatures with flying. Who cares? We're going to be flickering it to the ends of the earth. Then another card that's really good with flickering is Hacker, Whispering Raven. 2 mana for a 2/3 with flying. This is the backside of Alrund, by the way. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return it to its owner's hand, then scry 2. So that scry 2 is really quite cool. But the main reason we want to be playing it in a flicker sort of deck is you can play it for 2 mana to have Hacker, the Whispering Raven on the field. And then if you flicker it, it comes back as Alrand, God of the Cosmos, because this is the front side of the card. It's a 5 mana 1/1. Ooh, meaty. It gets 1/1 for each card in your hand and each Foretell card you own in exile. You can play Foretell cards if you want. I wouldn't really base a sort of archetype around this unless you're playing Alrund himself as your commander. At the beginning of your end step, choose a card type, then reveal the top 2 cards of your library. Put all cards of the chosen type into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. That works exceptionally with all of the scrying our commander allows us to do. So if we've scryed a bunch with our commander, we know what we're going to get at the end of turn with Alrund. It just writes itself, doesn't it? It's poetry. Deadeye Quartermaster, 4 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment or vehicle card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Just another really cool card that is good with flickering. And you can have a bunch of equipment in this deck, really beat in with your Inga. Which brings me on to number 4. And at number 4, we have, we're doing a lot of scrying. Why don't we take advantage of that? Eligeth, Crossroads Augur. 6 mana for a 5/6 Flying Sphinx. If you scry a number of cards, draw that many cards instead. So every time our commander enters the battlefield, we're going to draw 3 cards, which makes Flickering absolutely fantastic. So this card is wonderful with Inga. To go along with it, here's a couple of other cool scry cards. Jace, Unravel the Secrets, 5 mana for a 5 Loyalty Planeswalker, +1, scry 1 and draw a card. So if Elagath is on the field, it's +1 loyalty, draw 2 cards. Ooh, somebody stop Jace. Then -2, return target creature to its owner's hand. Finally, -8, you get an emblem with, whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell each turn, counter that spell. So if you can protect Jace to be able to ultimate it, that's pretty goddamn brat-breaking. You know, people aren't going to really come back from that. Then we got Retreat to Coral Helm. 3 mana for an enchantment with landfall, which means whenever a land enters, you get one of these effects. You may tap or untap target creature, or scry 1. The scry 1's where it's at, you know, really good value. Digs through your deck, even if you don't have Elagath on the field. And, you know, eventually you might want to untap a creature, maybe. Who knows? Then we've got Condescend, a wonderful spell. I love the modality of this card. It's a blue and X for an instant. Counter target spell unless its controller pays X. Scry 2. The really cool thing is if you only have a single blue up, you can just use this on any spell just to get a free Scry 2. Really good. Yes, we're not going to counter the spell, but we're getting some value from the Scry. Then Marit Lage's Slumber is a great card for this. You know, talked earlier about the Retreat to Coral Helm. This is just a souped up version that can eventually spit out a 2020. 2 mana for a legendary snow enchantment. Whenever it or another snow permanent enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more snow permanents, sacrifice Marit Lage's Slumber. If you do, create Marit Lage, a legendary 2020 black avatar creature token with flying and indestructible. Marit Lage is one of my favourite things in Magic. I'm going to say thing. I don't. Is it a person? I don't know. It's a thing. It's a big flying tentacle-y thing. But snow permanents are really easy to get in this deck because we're mono blue. We'll play mono basic islands that are snowy. Absolutely great. Look, that's Inga's ship, you know, cutting through the horizon. Really fits in with the theme of the deck. Then finally, a Sphinx here to go along with Elagath. 5 mana for a 3/5 with flying. You can discard a card to gain hexproof and tap it. And whenever it attacks, scry 3. So another great way of taking advantage of some good scries. Then in at number 3, we've got Glen Elendra Archmage. Now, yes, we can sort of hope a board wipe happens and, you know, everyone's creatures dies and we get to draw 3 cards. But really, we want to be making it happen ourselves. So Glen Elendra Archmage is a great way of doing that. And just a good card by itself. 4 mana for a fairy wizard with flying. Pay a blue, sacrifice it, counter target non-creature spell. Then it has persist, so it comes back to life with a -1/-1 counter if it doesn't have a -1/-1 counter on it. This is wonderful. We can activate this twice in a turn, you know, counter some spells, and then we just need to kill our commander, kill it dead, and we get the cards. To go along with this, Martyr of Frost is a great little human wizard. 1 blue for a 1/1, pay 2, reveal X blue cards from your hand. Sacrifice it, can't target spell unless its controller pays X. This is the really cool effect. It's an on-board effect, so your opponents are, you know, they'll try and play around it, but you just have to reveal your hand because we're mono blue. Everything should be blue. Apart from lands, lands aren't blue. When I first started playing Magic, I was furious at that fact. I hated it. It made no sense. They look blue. They're blue, but they're not. So this is a really cool card, and, you know, maybe we could rebuy it in some way, and, you know, maybe that'll come up in a minute. Magus of the Jar, 5 mana for a 3/3. Tap it, sacrifice it. For each player removes his hand from the game, face down, and draws 7 cards. At end of turn, each player discards his or her hand and return all of the cards you put to one side back to your hand. Really, really cool. Nice sacrifice effect and a really powerful effect. Refills your hand. Boom, boom, boom. You've got lots of cards. Finally, a nice bit of ramp here with Burnished Heart. 3 mana for a 2/2. You can pay 3 and sacrifice it. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. Great little death effect. Works really well with our commander. Then, if all of these things are dying, let's rebuy them and use them again. Back from the brink, 6 mana for an enchantment. Exile a creature card from your graveyard and pay its mana cost. Put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that card. Activate this ability only any time you can cast a sorcery. This is really cool. Yes, we're discarding a card, but big whoop, we're getting one of our cooler cards back from the graveyard. Then Mimic Vat, a great card, 3 mana for an artifact. Imprint, whenever a non-token creature dies, you may exile that card. If you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat to its owner's graveyard. Pay 3, tap it, create a token that's a copy of the card exiled with Mimic Vat. Again, haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. So this is a really cool card to put Inga underneath, because then you pay 3, you get your scries, you can then sacrifice Inga to something to hopefully trigger, all of the card drawing goodness. Then the final card, Alchemist's Apprentice, 2 mana for a 1/1, sacrifice it, draw a card. Simple, but fits really well in the theme of the deck. Which brings me on to number 2. And in number 2, we've got Riptide Shapeshifter, another great card for sacrifice effects. 5 mana for a 3/3. Oh, there's more. 4 mana, sacrifice it, choose a creature type. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature type of that type. Put that card into play and shuffle the rest into your library. So it's 9 mana to get a really awesome effect. And this is the sort of card which really makes you affect your deck building. So what sort of creatures could you name that might be quite unique? Well, what about Praetor? There's only one in mono blue. Ginger Taxis, the big fella. 10 mana for a 5/4 with flash at the beginning of your end step. Draw 7 cards. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. So if you name Praetor, you're always going to get Ginger Taxis. Unless you've drawn him and you've knackered it really, haven't you? Then, if you're playing golems, don't play any other golems apart from Blightsteel Colossus. So that for that 4 mana sacrifice, you will get a Blightsteel Colossus at instant speed. Excellent little Snapcaster Mage, jump in and block there. 2 mana for a Trample Infect Indestructible 11/11. And if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal it and shuffle it into its owner's library. Or you can name Eldrazi and whop out a Kozilek Butcher of Truth. 10 mana for a 12/12. When you cast the spell, draw your 4 cards. So no, you're not casting the spell, but Annihilator 4, which means whenever it attacks, your defending opponent sacrifices 4 permanents, is pretty damn good. And when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their entire graveyard into their library. So nice bits of tech there, which brings me on to my number 1 pick. And at number 1, there's copy effects. Because our commander cares about dying. So why don't we use the legendary rule to our benefit? Fated Infatuation is a triple blue instant. Put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature you control. If it isn't your turn, no, that's wrong. If it's your turn, scry 2. So wow, it fits in with a scry sub-theme. So with this, say our opponents, they've had a bit of combat, they've blocked, 2 of their creatures have died. We could Fated Infatuation our commander, create a token, we get the scry 3, and then it dies and we get 3 cards as well. Absolutely fantastic. Works really, really well. Then we've got Supplant Form. 6 mana for an instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. You put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that creature. So sadly, we can't use the legendary rule with our commander with this card, but it's a great way that we can rebuy it to, maybe play her again, get the scries. Or you can just use it on one of your opponent's, Praetors or something like that. So we get the token copy and it's back in their hand, all for 6 mana at instant speed. Then Sublime Epiphany. Good God, is there a lot of text on this card. 6 mana for an instant. Choose 1 or more. Counter target spell. Counter target activated or triggered ability. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. Target player draws a card. So this is absolutely wonderful. In an instant speed, we can copy our commander, draw some cards, do some scrying, counter the spell, activated ability gone, and the permanent's back in their hand, and we've drawn a card. It does everything the deck wants to do. Then we have Cackling Counterpart, 3 mana for an instant. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. It's exactly the same card, except it's worse art, and it has flashback for 7 mana. And you don't get the scry on your own turn, so it just doesn't fit as well into the deck. But why don't we just go for a classic clone? Vizier of Many Faces, 4 mana for a 0/0. You can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it has Embalm. Oh, no. Except if it was embalmed, the token has no mana cost, it's white, and it's a zombie in addition to its other types. So embalm means that for 5 mana, if it's in your graveyard, you can exile it and put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of it. Really, really cool. You know, works really well with our commander. Or we could just steal the best things on our opponent's side. Then, why don't we just, do it all together? Why don't we get a bunch of card draw, a bunch of scries, all in one big go? Rite of Replication, 4 mana for a sorcery with kick of 5. Put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature. If it was kicked, put 5 of those tokens onto the battlefield instead. So if we use this on our commander, we're going to have 5 of them enter. So we're going to scry 15, or scry 3, 5 times. And then we're going to be drawing 15 cards from the legendary rule, which is pretty solid. Then we got Mirror Pool, which ends the battlefield tapped, but it's a land that does everything the deck wants to do. Taps for a colorless, pay 3 and tap it, sacrifice it. Copy target instant sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. And then pay 5, sacrifice it, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature you control. So at instant speed, you can just copy whatever you want. It's really, really awesome. And those are my top 5 cards for this Inga commander. I think it's a really cool build around. It's something rather unique, which is what I really like in the uncommon legendaries. It's just a cool design space that I decided to use. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please do subscribe, comments, like, and all that sort of stuff. Thank you. Bye.